I heard the sound before I saw it, the slow tearing of paper. I rushed out and found my mother-in-law holding the two halves of my passport like a trophy. "You're not going anywhere with my son," she spat. My heart dropped. But if only she knew who was watching from the hallway. The rain tapped gently against the windows that morning. Zola had just finished packing her suitcase, her heart still full from the wedding only 2 days ago. She was excited. Today was supposed to be the start of her honeymoon with Tunde. Everything was set. Her clothes were ready, her shoes lined up, and her passport sat safely on the table, or so she thought. Then she heard it, the sound that chilled her more than the cold rain outside, a slow, deliberate tearing. Confused, she hurried into the living room and froze. Standing there was Madame Olufunmi, her mother-in-law, with Zola's passport ripped clean in two. The pieces hung from her fingers like a cruel trophy. "You're not going anywhere with my son," she said coldly, her eyes filled with disgust. Zola couldn't speak. Her throat tightened. Her legs felt weak. She could barely believe what she was seeing. Her dreams, her plans, her excitement, all gone in a single second. Just because Madame Olufunmi didn't think she was good enough. Just because Zola came from a poor neighborhood. That was her only sin. Zola stood there, silent, her hands shaking. She felt embarrassed, helpless, broken. But what she didn't know was that someone else had seen everything. A quiet figure stood in the hallway, watching the scene unfold. They saw the pain in Zola's eyes, the cruelty in Madame Olufunmi's action. They didn't say anything in that moment, but their heart had already made a choice. Zola thought she had no one. She thought her dreams had ended right there in that living room. But life has a strange way of turning pain into power. That moment, as heartbreaking as it was not the end for Zola. It was the beginning of something far bigger than she could imagine. The person watching from the shadows wasn't just a bystander. They were the key to a door Zola didn't even know existed. While Madame Olufunmi felt proud for destroying a passport, she had no idea she was unlocking Zola's true destiny. And in that quiet hallway, fate started to shift. Zola's wedding day looked perfect on the outside. The flowers were fresh, the music was sweet, and her dress sparkled like a dream. Friends and family smiled, clapped and cheered. Cameras flashed as she and Tunde danced, laughed and said their vows. But deep behind those smiles, something dark was hiding. A storm was waiting to break. You see, Zola didn't marry into a peaceful home. She married into pride, judgment, and silent war. Her husband, Tunde, came from a rich and well-known family. Zola, on the other hand, grew up in a small, quiet neighborhood where people worked hard just to eat. She didn't have fancy shoes or expensive makeup, but she had love and honesty. That was all she brought into her marriage. And that's what Madame Olufunmi, Tunde's mother, couldn't stand. From the beginning, Madame Olufunmi looked at Zola like she didn't belong. At the wedding, while others hugged and celebrated, she walked over and leaned close to Zola's ear. Her voice was calm, but her words were sharp like a knife. "You'll never understand our class," she whispered. "This world is not for people like you." Zola smiled, trying to stay polite. She didn't want drama on her big day. She hoped that one day, Madame Olufunmi would grow to accept her, maybe even love her, but she was wrong. That whisper wasn't just a warning, it was a promise of trouble ahead. Even during the wedding reception, Zola could feel the tension. Madame Olufunmi barely smiled in pictures. She gave cold, short answers to guests who asked about Zola. She didn't give a gift. And when it was time for family photos, she stood stiffly beside Zola like they were strangers. Tunde, caught in the middle, tried to keep the peace. He told Zola to ignore it, that his mother would come around. Zola believed him. She loved him and trusted him. She thought love could fix anything. She thought kindness would melt even the hardest heart. But what Zola didn't know was that Madame Olufunmi wasn't just proud. She was planning. The wedding was just the beginning. Behind her cold smile, she was already thinking of ways to push Zola out, to break her confidence, to remind her every day that she didn't belong in their world. And so, while the wedding guests danced and the music played, a quiet war had already started. Zola had no idea what she had truly married into, but soon the mask would fall and the real battle would begin. The morning of the honeymoon arrived, but the house felt colder than ever. Zola woke up early, full of excitement and butterflies in her stomach. Today was the day she and Tunde were supposed to leave for their dream trip. A chance to forget the tension, to start fresh, and to be just the two of them. She had packed her bags the night before, carefully folding her favorite dress and slipping her passport into her purse. Everything was ready, but as she called out to Tunda, there was no answer. The house was quiet, no sounds of breakfast being made, no footsteps in the kitchen. She waited and waited, hoping he was just running late. When he finally appeared, he looked distracted and tired. "I'm sorry, Zola," he said quickly. "I have to stay late at work. Something urgent came up, but don't worry, I'll catch up with you later." Zola smiled, trying to hide the disappointment. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll get ready. The driver should be here soon." But when she called the driver service, her heart sank. Her name was not on the list. The driver said no one had told him to pick her up. She asked again and again, but the answer was always the same. No driver, no plan for her. Panic began to rise inside her. She felt alone, confused, and scared. What was happening? Then, as she searched the house for her passport to get ready for the airport, she found it, the torn passport. It was ripped in half, the pieces lying on the floor like a broken promise. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. How could someone do this to her? Why? She looked around for answers but found none. Her mother-in-law was nowhere to be seen. The house was empty, except for her. The tears welled up in her eyes. This was not how her honeymoon was supposed to start. But Zola was not ready to give up. Clutching the torn passport pieces tightly, as if holding on to a broken dream, she made a decision. She would go to the airport. She would find out the truth. Someone had to explain why she was being stopped, why she was being kept away from her husband and her future. She called a taxi and raced through the wet streets, the rain mixing with her tears. At the airport, the reality hit her hard. She couldn't check in. The airline staff told her she couldn't fly because her passport was damaged. No one would listen to her story, but Zola refused to leave. She sat there in the busy terminal, surrounded by travelers rushing to their own journeys, while her own felt shattered. She looked at the torn pieces in her hand and whispered, "This is not the end. I will find a way." Her dream might have been ripped apart, but her spirit was not broken. The honeymoon she planned never happened, but a new journey, one of strength, courage, and hope, was just beginning. At the airport, Zola felt lost and confused. Everywhere she looked, people were busy, rushing to catch their flights. But she stood still, holding the torn pieces of her passport, feeling more alone than ever. She went to the airline counter, hoping for help. "Please," she said quietly, "I need to get on my flight. This is my honeymoon trip." The airline staff looked at her with sympathy. One woman gently shook her head. "I'm so sorry, ma'am, but you can't board like this. Your passport is torn. We can't let you fly." Zola's heart sank. She asked if there was anything they could do to fix it, any way to get a temporary pass, or maybe a replacement, but all the staff could offer were kind words and sorry smiles. No solutions, no hope. She felt the weight of disappointment crushing her. She turned to leave the counter, ready to give up, when suddenly a voice stopped her. "Wait," said a calm but confident voice. Zola looked up and saw a woman stepping out from behind the customer service desk. She wore a sharp, navy blue pantsuit and had a kind smile. There was something different about her. She didn't look like the usual airline staff. "Are you Zola Ajayi?" the woman asked, her eyes bright with recognition. Zola blinked, surprised. "Yes, that's me." The woman smiled warmly. "I've heard about you. I've seen your work." Zola's heart raced. How could this stranger know her? She had never seen her before. The woman continued, "My name is Tara Duby. I'm a senior manager here. But more than that, I've read your blog, your sketches, your poetry, your designs. They are amazing. You have a special gift." Zola couldn't believe it. Here, in this place filled with strangers and confusion, someone knew her, not for her torn passport or broken dreams, but for who she really was. Tara took a step closer. "Don't give up now. I want to help you." For the first time that day, hope flickered inside Zola's heart. Maybe this was not the end after all. Tara's kindness was quiet but strong. She didn't ask questions or judge. She simply saw Zola's pain and her potential, and she was ready to make a difference. In that busy airport, under the harsh lights and constant noise, a new chance was beginning for Zola, one she never expected, but one she desperately needed. The woman in the navy blue pantsuit smiled warmly as she stepped closer to Zola. "I'm Tara Dube," she said softly. I work as a senior executive here at the airline. Her voice was calm, but there was a kindness in her eyes that made Zola feel a little less alone. But Tara was more than just an airline manager. She was also a collector of art and design. For years, she had quietly searched for fresh new voices, artists and creators who spoke with their hearts. One day, not long ago, she had stumbled across a blog, a special blog full of beautiful sketches, thoughtful poetry, and deep ideas about African culture and design. The blog was anonymous, but Tara was moved by every post. That blog belonged to Zola. Now, standing in front of her, broken and hurt, Tara recognized Zola, not for her torn passport or the pain she carried, but for the soul behind the art. "You're the one who created those designs, those stories," Tara said gently. "I knew I had to meet you one day." Zola blinked, surprised and confused. She had never told anyone who she really was online. She thought her secret was safe, hidden behind the screen. Yet here was Tara, seeing her for who she truly was. Tara reached out and touched Zola's arm softly. "You have a rare gift. Your work is powerful and beautiful. It deserves to be seen by the world." Zola felt a mix of emotions, shame, hope, fear, and relief, all at once. She looked down at her torn passport, then back at Tara's kind face. "I don't know what to say," Zola whispered. "You don't have to say anything right now," Tara said kindly. "I'm here to help you. Let's find a way forward." In that moment, something shifted inside Zola. The weight of rejection and humiliation started to lift, replaced by a small spark of hope. Someone had noticed her, not for her problems, but for her talent. Someone believed in her. Tara smiled again. "You've been through a lot, but this isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning." Zola took a deep breath and nodded. Maybe, just maybe, this stranger's hand was the lifeline she needed to hold on to. A silent recognition had sparked a new chance, a chance to rise above her pain and prove who she really was. The busy airport buzzed around them, but in that small moment, Zola felt a calm, a quiet strength growing inside her. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time that day, she was ready to face it. Tara didn't waste time with too many questions. She could see Zola was tired and hurt. What Zola needed was help, quick and real. Tara smiled kindly and said, "Let's find a way to fix this." Without delay, Tara picked up her phone and started making calls. She had important friends and connections. Soon, she arranged a temporary travel pass for Zola. This pass wasn't like a normal passport. It was a special paper, given through diplomatic channels that would let Zola travel legally, even with her torn passport. But then Tara surprised Zola. Instead of the usual holiday spot, Zanzibar, the honeymoon place Zola had dreamed of, Tara told her, "You're not going to Zanzibar. You're going to Cape Town." Zola's eyes widened. "Cape Town? But that's so far. And I was supposed to go on honeymoon." Tara smiled gently. "I know, but this is different. You're not going on a holiday. You're going to a creative summit, a private event with designers, artists, and leaders from across Africa." Zola was silent for a moment, unsure if she was ready. But Tara's voice was strong and sure. "You're not going to rest. You're going to rise. This is your chance to show the world your talent." Zola looked down at the torn passport pieces still in her hand. She thought of her broken dreams and the pain she felt. Then slowly she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'll go." The airport was busy and loud as Zola made her way to the gate. She was alone now, but she carried with her a small borrowed courage, the courage Tara had given her, with her belief and help. As she boarded the plane, Zola felt many things at once: fear, hope, sadness, and a tiny spark of excitement. This flight was no longer about escape or sorrow. It was about a new beginning. The plane took off, carrying Zola away from everything she had known and into something new, a chance to rise, to heal, and to prove that even when life tears you down, you can still soar higher than before. And as she looked out the window at the clouds below, Zola made a silent promise to herself. She would not waste this chance. She would not let anyone's hatred or jealousy stop her. This was the moment her story truly began. Cape Town was different from anything Zola had ever seen. The city was full of bright lights, tall buildings, and people from many places. The air smelled fresh, and everything felt new and exciting. Zola arrived at the Creative Summit, feeling nervous, but ready. This was not the honeymoon she had planned, but maybe it was something better. At the summit, the room was full of artists, designers, and important people from all over Africa. They were talking about ideas, sharing stories, and dreaming about new projects. Zola listened quietly, soaking it all in. She wasn't sure if she belonged, but she knew she had to try. Soon, one of the leaders asked Zola if she could do a small task. Would you sketch some ideas for a new luxury airport lounge? Something that shows the beauty of Africa, they asked. Zola felt her heart beat faster. She took out her pencil and paper, ready to create. As she sketched, she thought about her home, her culture, and the many stories she wanted to tell. She mixed the rich colors of Yoruba fabrics, the bold patterns of Xhosa beadwork, and the graceful shapes of Ghanaian art. Her drawings flowed from her hand like music, full of life and meaning. People around her watched quietly. They whispered to each other, impressed by her talent and vision. But Zola didn't notice. She was lost in her work, feeling free and happy for the first time in days. Later, the leaders gathered to talk. They were judging the sketches to choose who would get a very important job, designing a new Pan-African airport lounge that would be seen by millions of travelers. Zola waited, unsure of what was happening. She didn't even know she was being judged for such a big contract. All she knew was that she had poured her heart into the drawings. Then, the announcement came. "We have a winner," the leader said, smiling. "Zola Ajay's designs will become the face of our new Pan-African lounge." Zola's eyes filled with tears. She could hardly believe it. From the pain of losing her passport and the heartbreak at home, she had come here and won something amazing. It wasn't just a prize. It was a new chance, a new life. People around her clapped and cheered, but Zola stayed quiet, feeling proud and calm inside. This moment was hers. She had risen from the ashes, and now the whole continent could see her light. In that room, surrounded by art and culture, Zola realized something important. Sometimes life breaks you to make you stronger, and sometimes, when you least expect it, your greatest dreams can come true. Back home, Madame Olufunmi was telling everyone a story. She said Zola had run away in shame, that she had been defeated and broken. To her friends and neighbors, she spoke proudly, as if she had won a battle. "She couldn't handle our world," she said. "She left because she was scared." Her son, Tunda, listened quietly. He didn't understand why Zola wasn't answering his calls or messages. Why was she so silent? He thought maybe she was upset, but he didn't know the truth. Tunda felt caught between his mother's harsh words and the woman he loved. Madame Olufunmi smiled every time she thought about Zola's silence. To her, it was proof that she had won. She felt powerful, like the queen of their home. She believed she had stopped Zola from going anywhere, from doing anything important. But life has a way of surprising us. One morning, while everyone was still waking up, phones started buzzing everywhere in Madame Olufunmi's house. People were sending messages, sharing news, and calling each other with excitement and shock. On the screen of Madame Olufunmi's phone, a news headline appeared. "Young Nigerian woman wins international contract to redesign Johannesburg and Lagos airport terminals." She blinked. She read it again. The woman in the picture was Zola, standing tall, dressed in a beautiful, elegant outfit. She was surrounded by important people, leaders from the aviation world, smiling confidently, no anger in her eyes, no hatred in her face, just grace and strength. Tunde stared at the phone in disbelief. This was the woman he loved, the woman his mother tried to tear down. But Zola was rising higher than anyone expected. The news spread quickly. Neighbors who once whispered about Zola now talked about her success. People who believed she had failed now wondered how she had become so strong. Madame Olufunmi's smile faded. She realized that silence is louder than any fight or angry word. Zola's quiet strength was more powerful than revenge. Tunda tried to call Zola again, but she didn't answer. Not because she was angry, but because she didn't need to explain anything anymore. Zola had already spoken, without saying a word. She had shown the world that no matter how hard someone tries to break you, your true power comes from rising above, quietly, strongly, and with grace. Months after all the news and excitement, Madame Olufunmi was sitting quietly in her living room when a small box arrived. It was a parcel, wrapped carefully, with no name on the outside. Curious, she opened it slowly, wondering what it could be. Inside was something unexpected, a beautiful frame holding a boarding pass. Not just any boarding pass, but one from a flight Zola had taken long ago. the flight that started everything new for her. The boarding pass looked elegant, shining under the light, like a symbol of freedom and success. Underneath the frame, there was a small note. Madame Olufunmi picked it up and read the words carefully. "Thank you for closing the wrong door. It forced me to find the right one." The words hit her hard. For the first time, she realized that by trying to stop Zola, by hurting her, she had actually helped her become stronger. The door she tried to keep closed only pushed Zola toward a better path, a brighter future. Just then, Tunda walked into the room and saw the frame and the note. He was speechless. No words came out. He looked at his mother and then at the note again. The meaning was clear. Zola had forgiven, but she was also showing that she didn't need their approval anymore. Tunde pulled out his phone and dialed Zola's number. He called her again and again, hoping for just one answer, one word. But Zola never picked up. She never blocked his number. She just chose not to answer. She was no longer trapped by their anger or their judgment. Zola was living her own life now. She had moved on with courage and peace. The gift she left behind was more than just a boarding pass in a frame. It was a message of strength, hope, and forgiveness. Madame Olufunmi held the note tightly. For the first time, she felt a quiet respect for the woman she had tried to break, the woman who had risen higher than she ever imagined. And somewhere far away, Zola was smiling, knowing she had finally found her place. She didn't need anyone's permission to fly. She was already soaring. Zola's life had changed in ways she never imagined. After everything she went through, she wasn't just surviving, she was shining. Her designs for the new airport lounges became famous all over Africa. Travel magazines showed her work, praising how she mixed beautiful traditions from different African cultures into modern, elegant spaces. People loved her style, and soon her little blog about art and design grew into a popular platform where many young artists shared their ideas too. Airline leaders and big companies started calling her for advice. They wanted to hear what Zola thought about making airports more welcoming and stylish. She was no longer just a young woman with a torn passport. She had become a trusted expert in her field. But Zola never thought about revenge. She didn't waste time being angry or trying to hurt those who tried to stop her. Her revenge was far stronger. It was how high she had flown after being pushed down. Months later, she stood again at the airport. This time, she held her passport carefully in her hand, whole and safe. Her name was on the VIP list. The security staff greeted her warmly. She smiled quietly, feeling proud but calm. She wasn't the same scared girl who had run to catch a flight with a broken passport. She was a woman who had taken control of her life and her dreams. As she walked toward the boarding gate, Zola thought about her journey. How she was once stopped and told she couldn't go anywhere. How someone tried to break her spirit. But now, she was the one going places, literally and in life. She didn't just survive the storm. She took off, flying higher than she ever dreamed. Zola looked out the window as the plane took off. The city grew smaller below her, and a new world opened up ahead. She knew this was only the beginning. There would be more challenges, but she was ready, because now she had purpose, strength, and hope. And deep inside, Zola felt something else. Peace. The kind that comes when you know you didn't let anyone else decide your worth or your future. She had taken off without permission and landed exactly where she was meant to be. If you believe in rising above every challenge and turning pain into power, hit that like button and share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring journeys that prove your past doesn't define your future. Drop a comment below. What would you do if someone tried to stop your dreams? Let's lift each other up. Blast off.